All right, let's get into it. Today, we're going to grab a scalpel and dissect one of the most diverse and, honestly, one of the most fascinating genres in all of cinema, horror. The whole point here is to break down its different forms so we can really understand how filmmakers manage to craft our nightmares. Okay, let's dive in. You know, when you really think about it, fear isn't just one feeling. It can be that sudden jump scare, right? Or it can be that slow burning dread that just sits in your stomach. It can be a deep sense of unease or just pure visceral disgust. And filmmakers, they've learned how to play every single one of those notes, composing this incredible symphony of terror that really evolves with our own anxieties. So, what are the instruments in this symphony? I mean, that's the big question we're exploring today. We're going to break down all the key subgenres to understand their unique rules, their iconic tropes, and really what makes them tick. By the end of this, you're going to have a totally new way of looking at your favorite horror films. And you can see a really clear evolution on this timeline. The 60s, well, they turned the camera inward with psychological horror. Then the 70s gave us this tangible monster right in our own neighborhoods with the slasher. The 80s got weird and explored our fears of our own bodies betraying us. And then the 90s came along and completely changed the lens through which we experience terror. Each decade is like a fascinating snapshot of what society was collectively afraid of at the time. Okay, first up, the slasher film. This subgenre is the one that brings the monster out of that old Gothic castle and plops it right down in our own backyards, making the terror feel frighteningly, horribly possible. The key here, and this is so important, is the humanity of the villain. See, unlike an alien or a ghost, a slasher killer is, or at least was, one of us. And that preys on a very specific, very primal fear. The idea that a regular person, just pushed by trauma or rage, could be walking among us, ready to just snap. And this is where you get that classic formula, right? You've got a group of fun-loving teens, usually in a place that should be totally safe, like a summer camp or a quiet suburb. The killer is almost always driven by some horrible thing that happened in the past, and the whole story builds to the final girl. She isn't just a survivor. She's become this cultural icon, the one who's resourceful and moral enough to finally face down legends like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. So, now we're going to shift gears. We're moving away from the external physical threat of a killer with a knife to something way more insidious. We're talking about the horrors that live inside our own heads. And this is a really important distinction. Psychological horror isn't about what you see, it's all about what you don't see. The terror is built on suspense, on doubt, and on that creeping feeling of what might happen. It taps directly into our own vulnerabilities and makes us question literally everything. And the way they pull this off is just masterful. Filmmakers use unreliable narrators to put us right inside the character's confused mind. Is what we're seeing actually real, or is it a hallucination? That's exactly why a film like Hitchcock's Psycho is so powerful. The horror is rooted in a psychology that's twisted, sure, but it's still fundamentally human, and that makes it deeply, deeply unsettling. The side just lays out the difference perfectly. Psychological horror, it plays by the rules of our world. The monster is inside the mind. But supernatural horror, well, it takes those rules and just shatters them completely. Which brings us perfectly to our next category, supernatural horror. This is where the threat comes from a place way beyond our understanding, a world where the basic rules of reality just don't apply anymore. The key phrase you gotta hang on to here is breach of physical law. This is the horror that comes from ghosts, from demons, from ancient curses, things that totally defy any kind of rational explanation. It taps right into our fear of the unknown and those forces we can't control or maybe can't even comprehend. I mean, think about the classic themes. You know the drill. A kid gets possessed by a demon, a family moves into a house built on an ancient burial ground, a priest has to battle some unseen evil. Films like The Exorcist didn't just scare people. They tapped into these really deep-seated anxieties about faith and evil and the afterlife, making the supernatural feel terrifyingly real. All right, from the spiritual, we are pivoting hard to the physical, and in the most visceral way possible. Our next category is body horror, where the ultimate terror isn't death, it's a grotesque perversion of life itself. Listen, the emphasis on the word transformation here is absolutely critical. This isn't just about blood and guts. Body horror is about that terrifying process of the human form mutating or decaying or just being violated in a way that turns it into something totally alien and monstrous. It's the ultimate betrayal by our own biology. And this genre is really where practical special effects get to shine. I mean, think of the incredible stomach-turning transformations in movies like The Fly or The Thing. These films use disease and mutation and parasites as these giant metaphors for our real-world anxieties about getting sick, about contamination, and about losing control of our own identities. Okay, for our final category, we're changing our entire point of view. Let's talk about found footage, a subgenre that literally tore down the wall between the audience and the action by putting the camera directly into the hands of the victims. The whole premise is chillingly simple. What you are about to see is real. It's presented as raw, unedited footage that was recovered after some horrible event. The implication is that we, the audience, are watching the final, terrifying moments of people who are now gone. It's an absolutely brilliant setup. The shaky camera, the improvised sounding dialogue, it's all designed to create this intense sense of realism. When the Blair Witch Project came out, its marketing was so genius, it completely blurred the lines between fiction and reality. This technique merges our experience with the characters. We see exactly what they see, we feel their panic, which makes movies like Paranormal Activity and Wreck so incredibly immersive and just terrifying. So when you step back and look at it all, you see that none of these subgenres really exist in a vacuum. Whether it's the fear of the killer next door, the monster in our own minds, a violation of our faith, our bodies, or even our sense of reality, horror cinema has always been a kind of dark mirror, reflecting back whatever it is that scares us most as a society. And that really just highlights the enduring power of this genre, doesn't it? As our fears evolve, with technology, with politics, with the environment, so will our monsters. It really makes you wonder, what new nightmares are just waiting to be filmed? What fears are we living with right now that the next generation of filmmakers is going to turn into a whole new symphony of terror?